The spotlight burned hot on my face as I stood at the podium. 500 guests in designer gowns stared back at me. The charity gala sparkled with crystal and champagne. Everything perfect for Caroline Cole's grand moment. Before we unveiled the new charity board, the host announced, "We have one final speaker." I stepped forward. My plain black dress looked dull against all that luxury, but I didn't care anymore. "My name is Maya Cole," I said clearly into the microphone. "And this foundation, built on my $10 million, was stolen by the woman who calls herself my mother." The room went silent. You could hear ice cubes settling in glasses. Caroline's smile cracked like dropped porcelain. Her face drained white. She gripped the table edge, knuckles bone pale. People whispered. Cameras turned. Security guards shifted nervously. Everyone thought I was crazy. Some unstable girl making wild accusations at a formal event. They didn't know what I'd discovered. They didn't know the DNA results in my purse. They didn't know about the hospital records, the bank statements, the CCTV footage. They were about to learn everything. I grew up believing Caroline Cole was my mother. She was elegant, charming, always perfectly dressed, the kind of woman who turned heads at restaurants. But at home she was ice. When I worked late studying, she called me lazy. When I saved money carefully, she called me greedy. When I tried to hug her as a child, she pushed me away saying I'd wrinkle her dress. I worked in her husband's company, handling accounts and financial reports. Numbers made sense to me. They followed rules. People didn't. My tiny office had one personal item, a chipped coffee mug I'd bought myself at 16. It was ugly and cracked, but it was mine. Caroline said it looked cheap. That's why I loved it. At night, I'd eat dinner alone while Caroline attended parties. Her husband, Thomas Cole, traveled constantly for business. He barely noticed me. I saved every penny I earned. 10 years of careful investing, budget tracking, smart choices. By 22, I had $10 million. Caroline didn't know. I kept it secret. Scared she'd find some reason to take it. Everything shattered on a Tuesday night in spring. Caroline insisted I attend a networking party at the Grand Hotel. She said someone important wanted to meet me about a promotion. I wore my best dress, still modest compared to Caroline's standard. The ballroom glowed with soft lights and violin music. A waiter handed me champagne. I rarely drank, but Caroline was watching, so I sipped it. The taste seemed strange, slightly bitter. 10 minutes later, the room started spinning. My legs felt like water. I remember music growing distant. Someone's hand on my arm. Elevator numbers glowing. Then nothing. I woke up at dawn in a hotel room I didn't recognize. My dress was on the floor. My head pounded. My body ached. I stumbled to the bathroom and threw up. When I looked in the mirror, I saw mascara streaked down my cheeks and a stranger's frightened eyes. I cried in the shower until the water ran cold. Then I dressed and left before anyone could see me. I never told Caroline. Shame kept my mouth shut. For months later, I noticed I'd missed my period. Then another. My stomach felt strange. The pregnancy test showed 2 pink lines. I sat on my bathroom floor for an hour, staring at it. Tears wouldn't even come. I just felt numb. When Caroline found the test in my trash, she exploded. "You disgusting girl," she screamed. "After everything I gave you, how could you shame this family?" "I don't know what happened," I whispered. "I think someone drugged me." "Lies. You're just like your trashy real mother." The words hit me like a slap. Real mother? But before I could ask, she called security. 2 guards grabbed my arms. "Get her out," Caroline ordered coldly. "She's no longer my daughter." They dragged me through the marble hallway. Maids watched silently. Thomas was traveling again, conveniently absent. They threw me out the front gate with only my handbag. The iron gates clanged shut behind me. Neighbors stared from their windows. The afternoon sun blazed down. I stood there in yesterday's clothes, homeless and pregnant. I went straight to the bank, hoping to access my savings and rent an apartment. The clerk typed on her computer, frowned, typed more. I'm sorry, Miss Cole. Your account shows 0 balance. My heart stopped. That's impossible. I had 10 million. All funds were transferred to Caroline Cole's name 6 weeks ago. See? Your signature authorized it. She showed me the screen. My forged signature sat at the bottom of transfer documents I'd never seen. My knees buckled. The clerk brought me water. Caroline had stolen everything, not just my dignity or my home. She'd taken every cent I'd saved for a decade. I walked out of that bank with $63 in my wallet and a baby growing inside me. The sky looked too blue. Cars moved too fast. Nothing felt real. I wandered the streets for hours. By evening, rain started falling. Cold drops soaked through my thin jacket. I had nowhere to go. No money for a hotel. No friends. Caroline had always kept me isolated. Then a black car pulled up beside me. The window lowered. Are you all right? A man's voice asked. I looked up. He was young, handsome, with kind eyes. Something about his face seemed familiar. I'm fine, I lied, water dripping down my face. You're not fine. Please, let me help. He stepped out with an umbrella. That's when I saw his face, clearly. Recognition flickered. Do I know you? I asked. He stared at my neck, at the small birthmark near my collarbone. His eyes widened. That mark, I saw it before. For months ago, at the Grand Hotel. My stomach dropped. I'm Prince Adrian of Belmont, he said softly. I think we were both drugged that night. The world tilted. His bodyguards caught me before I hit the pavement. Adrian took me to a private clinic. A doctor checked me over while he waited outside, respectful and quiet. When the doctor confirmed I was healthy, but pregnant, Adrian didn't flinch. I need to tell you something, he said as we sat in his car afterward. That night, I was told you had drugged me, that you were some opportunist trying to trap a royal. What? My voice cracked. I hired investigators. They found CCTV footage of a woman entering my hotel room before the incident. She spiked both our drinks. He showed me his phone. The video was grainy but clear enough. Caroline Cole, in a dark wig, slipping into his room carrying 2 glasses. My hand shook. Why would she do this? I don't know, but I'm going to find out, and I'm going to clear your name. For the first time in months, someone believed me. Adrian arranged for a lawyer and a small apartment where I could stay safely. He paid for everything quietly, not wanting media attention until we had proof. Rest, he told me. Focus on the baby. I'll handle Caroline. But I couldn't just rest. I needed work, purpose, dignity. 3 weeks later, I found a job posting for Harper Holdings, a major corporation. I applied under my middle name, Maya Harrison, to avoid Caroline's interference. They hired me as a junior financial analyst. On my first day, I met Mrs. Harper, the elegant owner's wife. She was kind but distant, with sad eyes that seemed to look right through me. Her husband, General Harper, was a retired military man. He carried himself with quiet strength, but something heavy weighted his shoulders. Their daughter, Elena, was my direct supervisor. She was beautiful, confident, and wore expensive clothes. But when she looked at me, pure hatred flashed in her eyes. From day one, Elena made my job miserable. She'd give me assignments, then change requirements at the last minute. She'd criticize my work in front of others. She'd accidentally spill coffee on my desk. "Do you think you're special?" she hissed one day when we were alone. "Do you think you can just waltz in here and replace people?" Replace you? I was confused. I'm just doing my job. "Stay in your lane," she warned, "or you'll regret it." I thought she meant professionally. Maybe she felt threatened by a new employee. I was completely wrong. Elena wasn't protecting her job. She was protecting a secret that would destroy everything she knew. One morning, I arrived early and found Mrs. Harper speaking quietly with the head maid in the hallway. "Ma'am," the maid whispered, "I saw Miss Elena in her bathroom yesterday. She was repainting her birthmark. With makeup." Mrs. Harper's cup trembled in her hand. "Are you certain?" "Yes, ma'am. I've seen her do it several times. The mark keeps fading." They didn't notice me slip past into my office, but something cold settled in my stomach. Why would Elena paint on a birthmark? Over the next week, I noticed Mrs. Harper watching Elena closely. The general did too. The tension in the house grew thick. Then, one evening, Elena forgot to lock her door. Mrs. Harper walked past and saw her daughter standing at the mirror, carefully drawing a small mark on her neck with brown makeup pencil. Mrs. Harper fainted right there in the hallway. I was working late that same evening when alarms started going off. Medical staff rushed through the building. The general found his wife collapsed. When she woke, she was crying. 22 years, she kept saying. 22 years of lies. I didn't understand what was happening, but something had broken open. The next day, Elena called me into her office for another made-up complaint about my work. She was shouting about a minor formatting error when the general walked in. "Enough," he said quietly. Elena went silent, but she was angry, and in her rage, she grabbed my collar and yanked it roughly. That's when he saw it. My birthmark. Natural. Faint, on my neck near my collarbone. The same mark Caroline always said made me ugly. The general froze. His face went white. "Where did you get that mark?" he whispered. "I was born with it," I said, confused. He stared at me like he'd seen a ghost. That evening, Mrs. Harper called me to their private residence. I'd never been invited before. She sat across from me, hands folded, eyes red from crying. "Maya, where were you born?" "Glenview Hospital," I answered carefully. 22 years ago. Her breath caught. "What month?" "April." "Why?" "Elena was born there too. Same hospital. Same month. Same year." The room felt too small suddenly. "Do you know who your parents are?" the general asked. Caroline Cole raised me, but she said something strange before she threw me out. She mentioned my real mother. Mrs. Harper started crying again. The general put his hand on her shoulder. "We had a daughter," he said, "born at Glenview Hospital 22 years ago. She was taken from the nursery. We searched for years. We never found her." My heart pounded. "You think—" "We'd like to do a DNA test," Mrs. Harper said, "if you're willing." The test took 3 days. 3 days of barely sleeping, barely eating, barely breathing. When the results came, the general called me to his office. His hands shook as he held the paper. 99.9% match, he said. "You're our daughter." I couldn't speak, couldn't move. Mrs. Harper entered and wrapped her arms around me, sobbing. The general joined us, and for the first time in my memory, I felt what family was supposed to feel like. But how? I finally asked. They showed me old employment records. Caroline Cole had worked as their maid 22 years ago. She'd been pregnant at the same time as Mrs. Harper. Both babies were born the same night. The nurses stepped away for just minutes. In that window, Caroline swapped the infants. She took Harper's daughter, me, and gave them her own child. Elena. Why would she do that? I whispered. Money, the general said bitterly. Status. She saw an opportunity to give her biological child a life of privilege. But why raise me at all? Control, Mrs. Harper said. She kept you close, made you grateful for scraps, took everything you earned. You were her insurance policy. If Elena's identity was ever questioned, you were there to take the blame or the fall. It all made sense now. The coldness, the cruelty, the way Caroline took my money without hesitation. I was never her daughter. I was her tool. Does Elena know? I asked. The general's jaw tightened. We're about to find out. They confronted Elena that night. I wasn't there, but Mrs. Harper told me everything later. Elena broke down immediately. Through tears, she confessed that Caroline had told her the truth when she turned 16. She said if I ever told anyone, I'd lose everything, Elena sobbed. The house, the name, the money. She said I'd go back to being nobody. So Elena stayed silent. She lived the lie. And when I showed up at Harper Holdings, she recognized me immediately from photos Caroline had shown her over the years. That's why she hated me. Not because of work. Because I was the real Harper daughter. The one who could take everything away. I'm sorry, Elena cried. I'm so sorry. But sorry couldn't erase 22 years of stolen life. Meeting my real parents felt like waking from a nightmare. Mrs. Harper hugged me constantly, as if afraid I'd disappear again. The general looked at me with pride I'd never seen before. We're going to fix this, he promised. All of it. But I didn't just want comfort. I wanted justice. I knew Caroline. She'd deny everything. Twist facts, play the victim. We needed undeniable proof. So I did what I did best. I dug into the numbers. For 3 weeks, I barely slept. I tracked every transaction Caroline had made since my birth. The Harper family gave me access to their old financial records. I cross-referenced everything with public databases, tax returns, property transfers. Slowly, the pattern emerged. Caroline had siphoned money from Elena's trust fund for years. Small amounts that wouldn't raise alarms. She'd used my earnings to fund her lifestyle. She'd forged documents, created shell companies, hidden assets offshore. And the $10 million she stole from me? It was sitting in an account under a fake business name, Cole Charitable Holdings. The same charity hosting tonight's gala. Adrian helped too. His investigators found more CCTV footage, not just from the hotel, but from the hospital 22 years ago. Grainy footage showed Caroline entering the nursery alone, then leaving with a bundle that wasn't hers. We had everything. Bank statements, video evidence, DNA proof, forged signatures, hospital logs. Caroline's entire house of lies was documented in a folder 3 inches thick. The hardest part was staying quiet, watching Caroline prepare for her big charity gala, pretending to be a philanthropist, using my stolen money to build her public image. But Adrian convinced me to wait. Let her have her moment, he said. Let her stand in front of everyone. Then we take it all away. So I waited. I got a simple black dress. I rehearsed what I'd say. I made copies of every document. The lawyer assured me the case was airtight. She'll go to prison, he said. This is fraud, embezzlement, kidnapping, identity theft. The list goes on. The night before the gala, I visited Caroline's house one last time. I had documents there I needed, old photos, my birth certificate that she'd kept locked away, and my coffee mug. She was home, sipping wine on the terrace. Still playing poor? She asked when she saw me. I smiled, just tying up loose ends. I grabbed my things and left. She didn't even look up. The gala was exactly what Caroline loved. Expensive, showy, full of cameras and important people praising her generosity. She wore a designer gown and gave a speech about helping the less fortunate. People applauded. Flash bulbs went off. I sat in the back row between Adrian and my real parents. My hands were sweating. Then the host called for one more speaker before the final announcement. That was my cue. I stood up, walked down the aisle, stepped onto the stage. Caroline's face went from confusion to recognition to fear in 3 seconds. My name is Maya Cole, I said into the microphone, and I told them everything. I explained how Caroline had stolen me as a baby, how she'd raised me like a servant while giving her real daughter my rightful life. I told them about being drugged and assaulted at the hotel, gesturing to Adrian, who stood up so everyone could see the Prince of Belmont confirming my story. I described being thrown out while pregnant, losing my home, finding my bank account emptied. $10 million, I said. Stolen by this woman. The same money funding tonight's fake charity. People gasped. Phones came out. Security guards looked uncertain. Caroline tried to smile. This girl is clearly unstable. I have proof, I said calmly. Adrian's team wheeled out a projector. The screens behind me lit up with documents, bank statements, video footage from the hospital showing the baby swap. The room erupted in whispers. Caroline stumbled backward, face draining of color. This is fake, she said desperately. All of it is. DNA results, I continued, holding up the papers, confirmed by 3 independent labs. I am the biological daughter of General and Mrs. Harper, not you. Mrs. Harper stood up, tears streaming. The General's face was stone. Video footage, I said, as the screen showed Caroline entering Adrian's hotel room with spiked drinks. Recorded the night she drugged both of us. Adrian stepped onto the stage beside me. I've pressed charges, he said quietly, for assault and conspiracy. Caroline's legs gave out. She collapsed into a chair, shaking. Elena was crying in the corner. Security moved toward the stage. The lawyer I'd hired stood up. Police are outside. Ms. Cole is under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, identity theft, kidnapping, and assault. The room exploded. Cameras flashed. People shouted questions. I just stood there, finally free. Officers led Caroline out in handcuffs. She was screaming, crying, claiming I'd set her up. But nobody believed her. The evidence was overwhelming. As they pushed her into the police car, she looked back at me one last time. I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No revenge. Just emptiness where anger used to live. Mrs. Harper hugged me tight. It's over, she whispered. But it wasn't quite over yet. Elena tried to run. She'd booked a flight to Europe using money from accounts Caroline had created in her name. But those accounts were frozen the moment police arrested Caroline. Everything Elena owned, the cars, the jewelry, the apartment, had been purchased with stolen funds. Authorities seized it all. Her friends abandoned her when the scandal broke. The people who'd praised her at parties suddenly didn't know her name. She called me once from a hotel room, crying. I'm sorry, she said. I should have told the truth years ago. Yes, I said. You should have. I hung up. Elena wasn't charged criminally. She'd been a minor when Caroline told her the secret. But she faced civil penalties for knowingly benefiting from fraud. The Harper name was removed from her legally. She'd have to rebuild her life as Elena Cole, daughter of a criminal. The irony wasn't lost on me. Now she knew what it felt like to lose everything overnight. The trial lasted 6 months. Caroline's lawyers tried everything. Insanity defense, coercion claims, procedural challenges. Nothing worked. She was convicted on 11 counts. Fraud, grand larceny, embezzlement, kidnapping, conspiracy to commit assault, forgery, identity theft. The judge sentenced her to 25 years in prison. Most of the stolen money was recovered and returned to me and the Harper family. Some had been spent, but enough remained to undo most of the damage. Adrian stood by me through every court appearance. When DNA tests confirmed our baby was his, he didn't hesitate. I want to be part of this child's life, he said, not out of obligation, because I choose it. We weren't married. Maybe someday. But for now, we were partners, parents, building something real from the ashes of what Caroline destroyed. With my inheritance and the recovered funds, I started the Phoenix Foundation, a nonprofit helping victims of family fraud, identity theft, and abuse. At the opening ceremony, I stood at the podium again. But this time, my real parents sat in the front row. Adrian held our daughter, who was 6 months old and perfect. This foundation exists because truth matters, I said to the crowd. Because even when people try to bury you, you can rise again. My old coffee mug sat on my desk in the foundation office, cracked, ugly in mine. Caroline sent one letter from prison. I never opened it. There was nothing she could say that mattered anymore. Elena sent flowers once. I donated them to a hospital. Some people asked if I felt satisfied, seeing Caroline locked away. Honestly, I felt free. I don't think about revenge. I think about my daughter laughing every morning when sunlight hits her face. I think about Mrs. Harper teaching me family recipes in the kitchen. I think about the general walking me down the aisle someday when I'm ready. Caroline tried to bury me in lies, but lies don't last. Truth is patient, and when it rises, nothing can stop it.